Suffering is all around us. We see it everywhere. We see it in our own self. We see it outside of us. We see people suffering. Some people suffer less, some people suffer more. Uh, Sometimes we suffer, we want something, it doesn't happen, and then we experience suffering because we have resistance. We don't want that thing to happen. We want something else to happen, and we experience suffering. We wanted a perfect life, doesn't happen. We experience suffering. We experience suffering even when people are successful. Even when people are successful, people have money, people have health, they are famous people, but you see them suffering. You see that there is still pain, they are still struggling, they are still depressed, committing suicides even. So, what is going on? We thought being rich, famous, successful, healthy made us happy. But why do people suffer? And why is there so much suffering in the world? Why aren't people happy? Why do we suffer? And why do even sometimes when people don't have resources, sometimes when they don't have everything, when they are struggling mightily with financially, economically, physically, emotionally, but they don't seem to be suffering? So what is the difference between people who suffer and people who don't suffer? First of all, let's not confuse pain with suffering. We experience pain. Everyone experiences pain. Pain is part of this life. Pain is physical. And everyone should experience similar amount of pain. I mean, your hand hurt, it gets crushed in the door, you will experience pain. You have a surgery, you will experience pain. But suffering is something more psychological. Suffering is more of, seems to be a mindset. Suffering is something some people suffer more. Why? And that's what we are going to find out. Many of us have become too goal focused. We are always running, rushing towards some goal or another. Even when we achieve one goal, we want to go for another goal. We are never satisfied. Oh, I've done this. Now, what do I need to do next? There is no time to enjoy the success. There is no time to enjoy the journey. There is no time for the process because we have been taught that the end justifies the means. So we are willing to do whatever, we are willing to be unhappy for a long periods of time and expect that the end will be happy. That's why people keep dreaming about that wonderful retirement, or they keep working their whole lives, and when they're old and unhealthy, then they say, okay, now we will retire. Same thing. People go after one goal, and then as soon as that goal is achieved, finished, they don't really even enjoy it, and then they're off to the next one and the next one and the next one. This is the cultural pressure. We have become too goal focused, and we are not able to enjoy the process. There is so much to enjoy. There are so many little things to enjoy in life that we are not able to enjoy because we are going after something else. That's one of the reasons that people suffer, because they can't enjoy the process. Do not resist the outcome. Let it unfold. Do not resist it, because no matter how unfavorable you think the outcome is, there is something in it that you can find worth reclaiming. You may not always get what you want, but you will always get what you need. And there is a deeper layer to this, because when you are released from your expectations from a certain types of outcome, then your mind opens up. Then you're looking for different ways to make things happen. You are still going towards a general direction of your expectations or goals, but then you're not tied to a specific way that's going to happen. And that's very liberating, because the universe has a way to offer us things in more creative ways and in more surprisingly delightful ways that we haven't even thought about them. So never think that it needs to happen in a certain way. So we do not need to get attached to certain specific outcomes. You can have goals, you can have expectations, You should work hard towards them. You should have inspired action, and you should put your heart and soul into it. And you should have maybe an expectation of an outcome, but do not get attached to a very specific outcome if you don't get it that way. Because first of all, you enjoyed the process, you were part of it, and then you were having fun while doing it. You were learning a lot. And then when you got a specific outcome and it wasn't as favorable as you thought it's going to be, then you accept it and you move on. And what happens when we accept something? Then we are really not complaining about that situation. Our energy is not stuck into that outcome, and we are not going back to that again and again and again. We have learned our lesson and we are ready to move forward. So that releases our energy to put more of it into our desired future outcome situation. So suffering is a mindset. Pain doesn't mean that you have to suffer. Pain is inevitable, like someone said, but suffering is optional. We have strategies and ways in which you can employ to avoid suffering. And you should, if you focus on process, and if you don't get attached to a specific outcome, we don't have to suffer that much. And inevitably, some suffering will happen, but you learn your lesson, and eventually will find that you are getting attached to an outcome too much, or you were resisting the outcome, and that's why it results in suffering. So, in brief, if you want to avoid suffering or suffer less, then do not get attached to the outcome. Enjoy the process.